They say the night is darkest just before the dawn. But I have lived through nights so dark, I forgot what the sun looked like. My name is not important. My face, you will not recognize. But my story is the echo of every dream the world tried to bury. And it began, properly, on my 60th birthday. I remember that morning. I woke up on a fold-out couch in my son's one-bedroom apartment. The springs were digging into my back. My neck was stiff. I could hear him in the kitchen, whispering to his wife, trying not to wake me, trying not to let me hear that they were arguing about money again. My pension from 37 years of manual labor, gone. My savings, wiped out by a business I started at 55. The one I poured my soul into, the one that collapsed in 22 months. My wife, she had passed 5 winters ago. Cancer. I couldn't afford the experimental treatment. I sat beside her bed holding her hand, and I promised her I would be okay. I lied. I looked in the mirror that morning. I saw an old man, wrinkled, tired, useless. I saw the son of a farmer who never learned to read. I saw the factory worker who got laid off at 45. I saw the failed inventor, the rejected applicant, the man who had started over so many times he had lost count. And I asked myself a question that almost killed me. What is the point? But here is the thing about life. It doesn't ask if you are ready. It doesn't care if you are tired. It just keeps moving. And if you are still breathing. The fight is not over. So let me take you back. Not to the success. Not to the ending. But to the beginning. To the mud. I was born in a village where rain was the enemy. When the monsoon came, it would wash the mud walls of our home halfway down. I remember being 7 years old, holding a tin plate over my mother's head while she tried to cook on a dying fire, the smoke stinging our eyes, the water soaking our feet. My father worked 16 hours a day on land that wasn't his. He came home with cracked hands and empty pockets. At 10, I sold vegetables on the roadside. At 15, I walked 12 miles to the city because I heard there was a factory hiring. They laughed at me. I was too thin, too young, too uneducated. I slept under a truck that night, but I didn't cry. I told myself, this is temporary. I was wrong. It wasn't temporary. It was the curriculum. At 30, I saved enough to open a small tea stall. It burned down 3 months later. An electrical short. I stood on the pavement and watched the flames eat everything. Pots, chairs, the photograph of my parents I kept behind the counter. Gone. I rebuilt. At 40, I started a tailoring business. I taught myself to stitch at night using borrowed needles. I worked until my fingers bled. For 2 years, it grew. I hired 3 women from my neighborhood. I was proud. I was finally somebody. Then the market crashed. Fabric prices tripled. The customers stopped coming. I couldn't pay rent. I had to look those women in the eye and tell them I had failed them. I remember walking home that night. It was raining. I didn't take shelter. I let the water hit my face. I wanted it to hurt. I wanted to feel something other than shame. My wife was waiting. She didn't say anything. She just took my wet jacket, hung it on a nail in the wall, and served me cold rice. We ate in silence. That silence, that was the hardest part, not the poverty. The silence of a woman who believed in you, watching you come home with nothing, again and again. At 50, I had an idea. I had spent 35 years watching the world. I noticed that the things people needed most, simple, durable, affordable tools for daily life, were being replaced by cheap plastic that broke in weeks. I thought, I can make something better, something that lasts. I borrowed money from a cousin who looked at me with pity. I rented a tiny shed, I worked 18 hours a day. I developed a prototype, a simple kitchen device. It took me 11 months. I slept on cardboard. I ate one meal a day. I took my prototype to a distributor. He held it in his hands for 10 seconds. "Too late," he said. "Market is saturated." I went to another. "Nobody knows your name." Another. "You're too old. Go home. Retire." I was 55. I had no home to retire to. The business failed. The debt remained. I was 56, 57, 58. I took odd jobs. Security guard. Delivery driver. I carried sacks of grain on my back. My knees screamed at night. My son begged me to stop. My daughter-in-law avoided my eyes. And still, in the dark, I would sketch. I would draw. I would dream. The turning point did not come like a thunderbolt. It came like a crack in the pavement. Small. Easy to miss. It was a Tuesday. I was 60 years and 4 months old. I was sitting in a public library, free, air-conditioned, pretending to read the newspaper. Really, I was hiding. From the heat. From my failures. From the weight of being a burden. A young man sat across from me. He was on his laptop, frustrated, mumbling to himself. I don't know why I spoke. I never spoke. Problem? I asked. He looked up, surprised. My grandmother. She lives alone. She keeps dropping things. Her hands aren't strong. Everything on the market is either too complicated or too expensive. I can't find anything simple. I looked at him. And something clicked. I went home that night and dug through my old box. The sketches. The failed prototypes. The device I had designed 7 years ago. The one the distributors laughed at. I dusted it off. I looked at it with new eyes. I wasn't trying to build a business anymore. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I was just an old man who understood what it felt like to be weak, to be forgotten, to need help. I spent the next 3 months modifying the design. I made it simpler, cheaper. I used the last of my pension, the money meant for my own old age, to make 5 units. I went to a community center. I gave them away for free to elderly people. I asked them to use it for 1 week and tell me what they thought. They came back with tears in their eyes. One woman gripped my hand. "I can open jars again," she whispered. "I can feed myself." That was the moment. Not the money, not the company. That woman, holding my hand, telling me I had given her dignity back. From there, slowly, painfully, beautifully, it grew. A local newspaper wrote a small story. A manufacturer called me. My son, who had spent years watching me fail, offered to build a website. I was 62. We started in his garage. We didn't grow fast. We grew steady. We made mistakes. We shipped orders late. We ran out of cash. There were nights I thought it would collapse, just like everything else. But this time, I wasn't alone. My son was with me. A few retired engineers volunteered. Young college students interned for free because they believed in the mission. At 65, we moved into our first real office. At 68, we were in national stores. At 72, I stood on a stage and accepted an award for innovation in assistive technology. I looked at the crowd. Men in suits. Women in designer dresses. I was wearing a borrowed jacket. My hands, calloused and scarred from a lifetime of labor, were shaking. I didn't prepare a speech. I just said, 32 years ago, I slept under a truck. 40 years ago, I couldn't afford to buy my wife a wedding ring. I am not special. I am not smarter than you. I am just too stupid to quit. The silence. Then the standing ovation. Today, our company employs over 400 people. We manufacture affordable tools for the elderly and disabled. We donate one for every 10 we sell. We have helped over 2 million people regain their independence. But that is not the legacy. The legacy is this: there is no expiration date on your dreams. Society tells you that your life is a race. That if you haven't won by 30, you're behind. That if you fail at 50, you're finished. That if you start at 60, you're a fool. Society is wrong. Your 20s are for stumbling. Your 30s are for rebuilding. Your 40s are for learning. Your 50s are for refining. Your 60s are for blooming. And your 70s. Your 70s are for looking back at the road behind you. The mud, the fire, the rejection, the cold rice eaten in silence, and realizing that every single step was necessary. The sleepless nights taught you resilience. The doubt taught you humility. The pain taught you empathy. The starting over, again and again, taught you that you were capable of far more than you know. So if you are watching this, and you are 20 and lost, or 40 and broken, or 60 and tired, hear me? I was you. I stood where you stand. I cried the tears you are crying. I felt the shame, the fear, the exhaustion of 1,000 false dawns. And I am here to tell you, the sun is still coming. It does not care how old you are. It does not care how many times you failed. It rises because that is what the sun does. And you must rise because that is what you do. One step, one day, one small act of refusing to quit. That is all it takes. My name is not important. But I am living proof that the final chapter of your life does not have to be the one written in failure. You get to write it yourself. Pick up the pen. It is not too late. It was never too late.